This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is John Herbert from Legion Arts in Cedar Rapids, which operates CSPS Hall and is the home of a diverse selection of music all year long. But this is the week it gets as diverse as it could possibly get.
Well, certainly as international as it can get. We're just about to embark in a few days on our 9th annual Landfall Festival of World Music.
9 years already.
9 years. So we have, I think at last count, about 65 musicians coming. That's not individual musicians. That's, well, it is individual musicians, ensembles and solos.
65 groups.
Not 65 groups. No, that's probably off in the future a bit. Then we'll be staging concerts over 5 days at about 4 different venues in Cedar Rapids. And in recent years, we started doing more and more sort of like pop-up events, at so kind of surprise locations. So a real fun time and a great variety of music.
So, and it starts on Tuesday the 12th?
It starts on Tuesday the 13th.
13th. Okay, I was looking at the wrong day on the calendar. Yep.
Yeah, we have 2 concerts that day. One taking place at 6:30 at Cedar Rapids Public Library. It's a great female folk trio from Argentina called Femina, making their first tour in the U.S. And then a really kind of legendary folk band from Hungary called, let me see if I can do this right, Shendergo, will be performing at CSPS at 8 p.m. that evening.
And this is one of those festivals where you kind of look all year long for the groups that you want to bring in.
We do. We're actually looking at and talking to groups for next year already. And of course, it's a complicated process. We talk to lots of bands. We go through lots of scheduling and rescheduling. It's difficult to get bands here from all over the world. And in fact, they only come here because we cooperate with about 5 other festivals taking place in September in the Midwest.
You're probably not going to come from Bulgaria to Cedar Rapids for one gig.
Well, you could if for the right fee, but we don't have access to that fee. So we work with lots of other presenters and with lots of agents and with some governments, especially in Europe. Typically, we rough out a schedule, and then half the bands fall away because they couldn't get their visas, or their funding didn't come through, or they didn't get enough gigs to put a tour together. And typically, it's not until like 6 or 8 weeks out before the festival before things really start sort of falling into place.
Setting aside the operational complications and influences that has on your schedule, visas, working with your network of presenters to bring bands in for kind of a tour or more than one gig. What are you looking for artistically from these? Because it's just got to be trying to compare and contrast all of these different styles and different nationalities has got to be a huge challenge.
Well, yeah, we certainly try and look for a range. So we optimally we sort of like include all parts of the globe every year. And this year we do have our artists coming from North and South America, from Europe, from South Asia, from the UK, from a lot of Eastern Europe. But then we also look for we kind of try and mix bands that are fairly traditional in their approach.
Traditional music for their country.
Yeah, adhere to the, and like Shendergo is probably a good example of a band that's, they're very up to date, but they're really, their repertoire really comes sort of from a very well-established Hungarian folk song tradition to what's a little more common these days, which is our artists who are working out of a national or cultural tradition, but sort of bringing in other influences from all over the globe. We have, for example, the last band on the festival this year is actually a band from Colombia, but now based in LA. So they're doing sort of roots music from Colombia, but with lots of hip hop beats and electronics and stuff. That's tending to be more and more common, both in the sense of like mixing up the influences, as well as bands physically, crossing boundaries. So sometimes we actually have a problem doing the publicity because frequently we're talking about a band where the members come from one country, like, lived in another country and are now based in a third country. So sort of like saying like, we have a terrific group coming called the Dole Foundation, which uses those big drums associated with Indian Bhangra music, the drummers that in the front of them. Really, really exciting music. They're mostly Indian immigrants, but they mostly live in London. So, it's hard to sort of figure. We don't want to
That-
say this British music because people will be expecting, marches and flutes and stuff. But it's not really not accurate to say they're from India either. So we kind of straddle that, and that's an exciting aspect of things to us. Those sort of cross cultural influences.
The lines blur in some interesting fashions.
They do. But I think it reflects, really an increasingly fluid
Global
global
culture.
picture. Yeah, where people are like not only physically moving, but they're blending sort of cultural influences in many ways.
Talking with John Herbert from Legion Arts about the Landfall Festival of World Music. Now, we did mention specifically the two groups who are kicking off the festival on Tuesday the 13th. So, run down, I know there are a lot of groups, so kind of give us a little sketch of what's going to be happening for the rest of
And I think interesting, we have a number of groups coming from what's called we could call Central Europe. On Wednesday the 14th, we have a Czech Bluegrass band coming. Some people may be familiar with Druha Trava, a very well-established Czech Bluegrass band from Prague that plays at CSPS about every other year. So this is kind of a spin-off from that band formed by one of the band members called the Molina Brothers. And they're very accomplished, and again, people are often surprised that there are literally scores of bluegrass bands in Prague and in the Czech Republic, and it seems like an anomaly in a way, but it's just a sort of like cultural crossover that really took root there, and so we're very happy to be welcoming these guys on their first American tour. We have also on Wednesday a terrific band, very traditional in a way, from Ethiopia called Fendika. They'll be performing at the Cedar Rapids Public Library with, amazing dancing and singing and traditional Ethiopian instruments, very high energy. Also on Wednesday, a sort of, I would say a kind of fusion ensemble from Poland called Lotari that works with a lot of very traditional folk songs, sometimes actually playing recordings that they've collected in villages in Poland, but then sort of building a kind of like I would say it's a lot of elements of jazz and music on top of that. And then, as I mentioned, the big highlight on Wednesday night is the Dole Foundation, which will cover this stage at CSPS with I think about 8 to 10 huge drum players. So.
And that gets us through Wednesday.
Wednesday, we have a concert at Opus Concert Cafe. Is one of our presenting partners. A terrific, it's called a timbal. It's like a tiny little guitar from the Canary Islands, and arguably maybe the best timbal player in the world right now. A guy named Herman Lopez will be appearing with another Spanish guitar player. Really, really accomplished, and it's a little bit like a ukulele, but it has 5 strings instead of ukuleles have.
I believe ukuleles have 4.
Yeah, so we're very excited about having him here. Then another exciting partnership we have going this year is with our neighbor across the street from CSPS, Nubo City Market, and we will be doing programs there both Friday night and all day Saturday. On Friday night, we have a terrific salsa band made up of Cubans, mostly living now in Canada. So again, you get that sort of like cross-cultural influence. But the band leader is Adonis Puentes, and he's a terrific trumpet player, singer, band leader. And we expect to have a nice dance floor established there at Nubo City Market on Friday night. And then we'll return to the market on Saturday with 3 really exciting groups. A sort of new wave brass band from Austria, 7 really young players, really exciting and dynamic, and sort of reinventing the sort of brass band tradition for the 21st century. A great singer from Reunion Island named Maya Kamati, making her first American tour. And then we'll be finishing up on late afternoon on Saturday with the group I mentioned earlier, Palenka Soul Tribe, these crazy Colombian electronica musicians, based in LA and doing really, really exciting sort of fusion music.
Variety, thy name is Landfall.
Well, it certainly is this year.
And it said concerts all over the community for just about a week, and some are free, some are ticketed events.
No, none are ticketed.
None are ticketed?
They're all free this year. We strongly encourage people to make donations because it's an expensive project, and it really wouldn't exist without sort of people generously supporting it. but they're not ticketed. Many of them are outdoors. If on Friday and Saturday, if the weather's inclement, we'll move things into CSPS Hall. But yeah, just come on out. We have little printed schedules floating around the community, but you can also find all this information at our website, which is legionarts.org. Also, we're on Facebook, both as CSPS Hall and as Legion Arts and as Landfall Festival. So if you're on Facebook, you can find us many, many places. And if you have trouble finding the schedule or you have questions about specific events, you can call CSPS, and that number is 319-364-1580.
It's the Landfall Festival of World Music, September 13th through the 17th, centered on CSPS Hall, but all over the community in different locations, both indoor and outdoor. John, it's a huge undertaking. Thanks so much for bringing it to the community, and good luck.
Thanks, Dennis.